Before we start off, I want to say that all the Torah that was going to be learned today, B'ezrat Hashem, all the impact that's happening through all this event today should be in honor of the refuah shlema of all the people around the world that need Yeshuas, both in all the aspects of physically and spiritually, but specifically right now with refuah shlema. We know a lot of people right now in Am Yisrael are struggling and having a rough time in the hospital, etc., in serious conditions. Specifically, I want to point out Eliyahu Fable ben Mindel Perel should have a complete refuah shlema. And with that being said, I want to introduce today's speakers. Many here who are on the chat right now, you guys know who they are, but I'll give you a quick background on both of them. We have with us Gedale Fenster. What's going on, Gedale? How are you, brother?
Hey guys, how are you? How are you?
So, Gedale Fenster, for those who may not know who he is, Gedale Fenster, you can find him every single day. He has an incredible WhatsApp group called the Breslov Power Group, where, and you can also see him most of the time every Wednesday night at the Lighthouse Project in South Florida in Miami. Gedale has exploded in the last several years, producing incredible Torah classes of Emunah and faith. And what he's doing in the world today, in the Jewish world today, and also in the worldwide world today is an incredible thing. Essentially, he is your pick-me-up, spiritual Tony Robbins, wake you up from your spiritual sleep and get you moving, right? Get you moving and looking at life from a different angle. And I know from just in general, from my own experience with Lighthouse, as well as the conversations that we've had, tremendous amount of people are being helped by Gedale every single day. And it's an incredible thing and a big zchut for you, Gedale. And super happy to have you here on board with us. And also we have today another, not a stranger to us here in Miami in the Lighthouse Project, Rav Doniel Katz from the Elevation Project, who I want to say thank you very much again also for helping us in putting this whole thing together, Rabbi. Rav Doniel Katz essentially is changing the world today from the concept of bringing da'at to yourself, meditation, essentially all the different things. I remember when we spoke about this already a couple of years ago, Rabbi, the things that you're doing in the world in regards to creating consciousness from a Jewish perspective, where we've always gone through, let's say, the 9-to-5 rote Judaism. You've kind of like decoded, so to speak, all the writings from Hasidic masters and beforehand, and being able to make Judaism also very practical. And I know for myself, Gedale, who has helped me tremendously in my own spiritual self, Rabbi, I can attest that this past Uman Rosh Hashanah, I was privy to be in a part of a meditation on Shabbat, where I got to hang out with Rebbe Nachman in my meditation. And it's really, really fascinating, incredible what you're bringing to Am Yisrael. So we have two huge powerhouses right now at the same time. And I think I want to just start off with the first question that I think is on my mind that I'd love to know what you guys are up to. Survival tips right now, staying sane, being home, not being out. How is that affecting both of you guys?
Who's first? Rabbi, you want to answer first?
No, Shalom Michael, Shalom Gedale. You go first, please. Bevakasha.
Please, Rabbi.
No, you start.
Rabbi, please, go ahead. Go ahead, Rabbi first, please.
This is what we call the niceness walls in my house. Gedale, Otomi, start, go, you're on.
Okay, it's definitely been an experience that, I'm gonna be honest with you, when this thing happened, I had major panic attacks. And it was like the same panic attacks that I've had 8-9 years ago. So in the beginning, it was a complete, oh my God, what's going to happen to my companies? What's going to happen to this? What's going to happen? First, unfortunately, it was only financial, the attacks. And then, I screamed out to God and I said, God, there's no way I can't handle this without you. And I basically used the same thing that we do in our rehab companies. Is I went powerless. I said, Hashem, I can't control anything. You're in charge. And after that, I really got a sense of tranquility, and from that breakdown that I had, I've been able to stay somewhat sane in these times. Obviously, I have 3 kids under 3, so that just jacks up the volume a little bit. And obviously, running businesses, running the classes every single day. But there's been a lot of highs and lows. There's been a lot of highs and lows. It's the good thing is after a good hisbodedut every morning, I calm down and I get through the day. But there's no question the amount of highs and lows, and you know, I could be in a great mood, and next thing you know, I hear this person's sick and that person's sick and that person's sick. So it just, all I want to do right now is see what can I do to give people, whether it's financially or mentally, but it's clearly teaching me to stop thinking about myself. It's clearly teaching me to stop majoring in minor things, which the things that bothered me 2-3 months ago, today I don't even think twice about them. It taught me, it teaches me to I took a lot of things for granted, and honestly, there was a lot of time that I wasted also. I mean, there's no question from this time that I've had. There's been, I've read through a lot more studying, a lot more reading, working on my book, but there's a lot of time that I wasted going to Heat games all day long and going to this and going to that, and I recognize, wow, where's all this time that I had? So there's a lot of ups and downs, I don't think anybody could stay on one level here, no matter how strong you are. And I think this is exactly what Rebbe Nachman's teaching us, He's teaching us how to run and how to return, nobody's going to just run, and you can't just sit there either. So it's really, I think my classes are really teaching people how to run the marathon. And I'm training you guys for the marathon, and here's the marathon. And that's all we can do in life. All we can do in life is really train for the marathon. I mean, honestly, I think about it every single day. What else can I do but to train for the marathon? And boy, do we have a marathon today. So that's my basically, I would say, running and returning, ups and downs, restarting every single day, pushing myself, and just basically, just training and using the muscle that we've built up, thank God, with thousands of followers, and using that momentum right now to stay sane. And I'm getting a lot of messages throughout that if it wasn't for the classes from a year ago, 2 years ago, today we would be freaking out completely. So you could see this is the day we trained for. We trained for the big day. So that's
wow.
my story.
Gedale, you're such I deeply respect your authenticity, and you're also such a chilled yid. When you say a panic attack, what does that really mean to you?
When you say that, with you, when all of a sudden, we have 5 or 6 doctors that work for us, and
right.
Obviously, Rav Nachman hated doctors. I understand why. So one guy is telling me, oh, by the way, 65% of Aventura is going to get coronavirus. Everything's going to be shut down. So when that came to me, it put me in such a panic attack. I mean, I'm hearing from the guy from the Aventura hospital, what people that work for me work for the hospitals. It's not like some guy from, I have a 24-hour detox, which is just like a hospital. So I'm seeing this on the front line. So when I got hit with that news, oh my God, 50% of Florida is going to have coronavirus. Say Kaddish to everything. And then obviously that's not the case today, but that was the original news that I got. Run for your life. And then all my emunah, and I guess when a person loses trust, then the fear can come into him. And at that moment, I had a major yerida, a major panic attack, and everything. And I felt like everything that I worked for just went out the window. And then from there is when I cried out to God and asked him, listen, this is a long road. I need your help. I really need your help. And after that, first, it was that, I would think 2-3 Shabbats ago. After that, I got obviously my wife completely, my wife gave me, obviously she told me, listen, you're the one teaching these classes. Get your what together. So, my wife doesn't.
She's keeping you real. She's keeping you real.
She doesn't give me cotton candy and says everything will be okay. She's like, you better get your butt together really quick. And after that, I've been able to, I would say, highs and lows, but nothing, no crashing, God forbid, or any, just yeshuva dat, I would say. But again, I could have a great class. I could be completely pumped up, and next thing somebody's telling me, listen, my father's about to die in the hospital. So I think human nature, you can't. It's something how could you yes, this is a cleansing for the world, but yes, people are dying from it. So there's that feeling of simcha, not, God forbid, despair, but it's not a full simcha that I can really have,
Right. Right. I also feel a little caught on that, this nakuda, this point of, I actually feel quite, again, there's a lot going on so many levels. I'm afraid to say it out loud, some part of me feels like a big spiritual high right now. And I don't mean that in disrespect to the doctors, to the nurses, to the pain that people are facing, but I'm sure as a teacher, supposed to be trying to be a spiritual guide, trying to be a spiritual teacher, and feeling, we're getting some traction in the world, but also so overcome sometimes by how much darkness there's in the world, how much superficiality in the world, majoring in a minor, as you say, John, how many people are living in a real disconnected way. And there is a very deep, intense energy where you feel that people are, but I don't mean to say this in a disrespectful way, they're shaken to the core, and the fact that they're awakening. We actually have a teacher training program for elevation, and there's a few people who reached out to me who are training as teachers, and they've said, like, there's been family members or friends that they've tried to teach meditation to, or try to teach Hasidus to, have not been open. And a few people all said simultaneously, they've all kind of turned now and said, please teach me, show me. There's one tzaddik in the New York area who actually wrote a little Torah that I read, and he said there's actually tremendous spiritual energy available right now, because so many things that are normally happening that distract our mind and consume the kind of spiritual energy in the world, they've been like taken out of the world, and people are all suddenly more open. And he said there's usually a sense of tumor in the avira, of negative spiritual energy in the air. And he says a lot of that's gone down now. I've seen around the world, have you seen all these photos of the pollution dropping in each city because people are less engaged in the physical world. So the tzaddikim that say there's a spiritual tumor, Rebbe Nachman says, it's best to do his Buddhist at night. It's best to do his Buddhist in a place where nobody's working at the time, where there's not all that busyness in the world. So actually that's happening, and there's an extra power and opportunity spiritually to tap in. And I kind of sense a kind of high around that. Now, I'm not saying there's not struggle, I'm not saying there's unbelievable pain, which these are the things that we know about. But there's also a deep idea that, everybody knows a little about the market, that when the markets drop, that's a good time everyone else is panicking, that's a good time to buy. So I think there's a thing that, the energy of physical absorption and physicality and ego is dropping right now. And it's a great time to buy spiritually. That's going to be, those shares are going to, soar right now. And part of me is kind of dealing with the pain that the world's going through, but also this deep sense of now is the time to move, now is the time to catalyze. As you said, we've been training, and now the marathon's on. And another way, just to add to that, that's absolutely true, there's also incredible opportunity for exponential growth that is not usually available at usual times. I just want to say my own personal answer to Michael's question. I don't even want to get into this subject, and I haven't really spoken about it publicly, but I went through, starting 3 months ago, starting through the end of December, my whole organization got rocked. And I know some of you know about it. I was in contact with Gedale, who called me kindly, sweetly straight away, and Michael as well. We've been planning for like well over a year, all these international retreats, all these international seminars, hiring a team to get them out there. It'd been a dream of my lifetime. And starting right at the end of December, one insane supernatural thing after another blew up everything one at a time. And I am a pretty determined person. And I literally had to decide for the first time in life, we had to crash all the events. We had to let go of all the staff. And I went through this very kind of dark week, like, Hashem, I'm trying with all my heart. We all care for this. Gedale, you and I spoke about this. And I was rocked, and I had to write that email saying, I give up. And I've never seen such supernatural things, one after another, come from staff, from funding, from logistical challenges with certain venues we're using, until there was nothing I could do in every direction. And I said, I don't know what Hashem is doing right now, but he's closing me down. And I took it personally. I'm not Zocha, there's something I've done to block this. And I closed down the organization. We had to let go of staff. We had to call off the events. Wow. We had to potentially lose deposits. And I sat there going, Hashem, we had March, April, May, June, July, event after event, and the whole thing blew up supernaturally. And I sat there going, what did I do to deserve this? But my goal was twofold. For the first time in my life, I'm pulling back. I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to push it. I feel all the energy is closed and I don't know why. Is it me? And the second thing is I never in my adult religious life ever focused on my house, on my home, on my wife and my kids. Focus only learning Torah. I'm not going to go out there. And it was this really brutal 2 or 3 weeks of literally having to press stop, literally having to let staff go, literally having to apologize to students on this thing, and then going into this time of focus with my kids and family. And that was literally the week where everything collapsed and everybody had to focus with their family. And it's literally supernatural, which means when everybody got shocked that they had to close down, I was like, oh, I literally just did that for the last 6 weeks. Wow. And I was like, okay, now I'm here to hold space. And now we're here to, and there's people from all around the world that responded to that email when we said we have to close down. So my wife pointed out the other day, as a few people have, that literally everything we closed down we would have had to close down, number one. All the stuff we had to let go of, we would have had to let go of. And the whole supernatural thing literally started while it was all warming up in China. And we were just like gung-ho planning all these events. So I kind of feel that Hashem gave me the gift and I had to go through the challenge part before it began. So once it began, there was no operation, there was no staff, there were no events to cancel. I was home with my wife and kids, and we could then spend the time giving or being present. So it's so strange how Hashem guides us all in the way that we need to, and it's kind of shocking. So it's been an interesting time to be present with my wife and kids. Some people are overwhelmed by how many kids they have in the home, and some people are overwhelmed that there's no one in the home and they're all alone. Everybody is getting exactly the hits and exactly the kiss that they need right now, to work on exactly what they need to work on. And, that's the focus I've been telling everyone. What's the thing most troubling you? It's loneliness. It's bringing up my internet addiction. It's too many kids at home. It's I have to spend time with my wife, my husband. We don't even get along. So stop seeing that there's a global catastrophe. Stop seeing, there's not a global emergency, but there's potential for a global emergence by everyone focusing on their own challenge right now. And you make that your marathon. You make that the game that you're going to change. And I believe that there's a deep interconnectivity. If everybody, would do that inner transformation, I believe there's a critical mass opportunity. And that's, part of the opportunity that's before us right now.
It's funny. You see now, all of a sudden, tons of people coming into treatment. Before they would have never gone to treatment. That means they were okay working with a heroin addiction at work as long as they can get away with it, or drinking at work, or being an living like a working alcoholic. You see people that are functioning addicts, but now they're forced to actually finally become the best version of themselves. So it's unbelievable how you see now the coronavirus made you go into come and finally work on yourself, which is it's unbelievable. It had to take the whole world shutting down for this guy to stop doing heroin and finally say, you know what, I need to work on myself. I can't, there's no job anyway. So when you see that angle of it, and you see, wow, this is what it had to take for you to become the best version of you, and you see that this is what we do. We're seeing tons of people coming in before they didn't have the time. They didn't have the time for what? Going nowhere faster. But now they're finally having the time, and finally you could see there's a tremendous amount of good happening in the world. Tremendous. It's just obviously it's hidden to many. And that's the struggle today, is dealing with the concealment of what we, and it's easy to say, the son of a, in China, it's so easy to become a victim
blame
of
game
in China and
the
blame the guy
game,
with the
right?
bat, or China, you stupid, or this one did it. But this is Mochem Kadmon. This is exactly what we don't want. And that's really I think the fight today is getting out of that bad mood, getting out of that mindset of, who can I blame? Instead of saying, what, maybe there's something that I need to change. And right. I'll tell you one thing that really scared me.
What's that?
Really, really scared me before all this happened. And I was very fortunate to escape the market when I escaped the market. When I saw that speech from Trump, and I saw that speech, and then the whole world is saying, when analysts came and said, it's impossible to have a recession now. He says, it's impossible. There's no way the economy is thriving. Basically he's saying that the economy is doing so good. The economy is doing so good that it's not possible for a recession to come.
Whoa.
Okay? Once he said that, I said, uh-oh. You know, and it almost reminded me of I think Rothschild. I remember he says, I have so much money that there's no way I could die of famine.
The second they're saying me, I can do it. You know, we're on top. We're in control. Right. You're like, I spot the guy. I'm out of here.
Once I heard that, I said, uh-oh. And the same thing that Rothschild, I think it was Rothschild, that he said, I'm so rich that I'll never die of hunger. And you know what happened? He locked himself by mistake in the freezer and he died of hunger. So
is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened. I don't know if it was Rothschild or I can't remember. One of the big Gedolim. Not big. I think it's Rothstein or Rothschild.
Fine.
He died in the freezer. So it's in a safe or his freezer. I can't remember.
David Kadash is yelling at the safe.
Or he got locked in. Basically, we don't. Once we say there's no way this can happen, there's no way. You're
challenging Hashem. You're challenging Hashem.
Yeah.
You're pulling it out.
So that's it. Bye bye. I'm not comfortable with this.
So you were blessed. You had to pull out in time. Okay.
I was blessed because I did his bodedut, and I don't know why that thought about. I kept on replaying in my mind. There's no way we could be saved from a recession. I said, open up your mouth to the Satan. It was Rothschild. Open up your mouth to the Satan, and God forbid you could see. So again, the Rebbe Nachman's talking about the hands. Our hands, and this is why we wash our hands, because remember, it's not your hands making the money. And that always scared me. Anytime there's too much light and these people don't have the right kelim, they start taking credit for it. And that's almost like disaster waiting to happen. So,
yeah, this is the Torah as well. We've been talking about in the Chabur and the Gush, we've been talking a lot of Torahs about how the hisboidedus and the birdud, the isolation is like a Shabbos, and all these bechinas, all these aspects and dimensions of Shabbos. One of the things that when we wash on Friday night, exactly, we're washing our hands. There's this idea because we wash our hands, especially before the Suda of Friday night, because it's not just washing for the meal in general, but the bread, the Manchilechem min haaretz, is kind of like the success story. We've kind of, for 6 days, we've had to deal with our Yetzer Haras and deal with our challenges and deal with our troubles and our issues. And then on Shabbos, we kind of cross the finish line and we can rest and we connect and we go into the Vekas and go higher. So there's definitely an idea, because when 6 days you work, that's the idea of, koichi va'otzim yadi, which is the idea that I can't help but feel after 6 days of working that I did it. I made the economy. I made the house. I've been successful. And the idea of pouring the water onto our hands is the Me'ah Das, the Me'ah Chochmah. We're drawing down a higher consciousness, which says, cleanse your hands. Want your hands to engage in the world. That there's a spiritual impurity attached to them, that you think that I did it, that I created it. So there's a famous idea, there's a famous duality in Torah, this idea of, is it hishtadlus or is it betachan? Is it I did it or is it Hashem did it? And that's all of life. You can say everything's up to Hashem, but sometimes actually you have to get off your chair and you have to take responsibility. Sure. So you can say, I take responsibility, and you can say, well, it's not Hashem because I take responsibility. So, Torah actually lives with that duality. And the best way I had a teacher one time tell me, how do you work out the distinction between, he says, before the act is done, that's the time that you have to say it's my responsibility. The second the act is done, then you say, actually, it was all Hashem the whole time, right? Now, we also know before the act, we also have to give it to Hashem, but there's a duality, that oscillation. So when you get to Shabbos, that's the time when we wash our hands, we cleanse our hands, which is really saying, I cleanse the ego ownership that said, I succeeded this week, I made the money this week, I accomplished things this week. And you lift them up above your head. And we know lifting the hands above the head is how we overcome Amalek, how we overcome Suffolk. That's our Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Because there's a place there's what I understand in my activities, but there's a place which is my faith, which is higher than consciousness, higher than understanding, and I have to kind of lift that up. That's, I think about this every time I wash. I've had a habit in the last couple of weeks. I'm washing my hands all the time. And I also kind of just do this, because washing my hands is like, I'm going to protect myself from the disease. I'm going to protect. And then I kind of do this thing, you know, really, it's totally up to Hashem. Like who knows? It's that thing of responsibility. And also kind of release and trust and that constant isolation. It's a little what we see right now in the world. Not so pashut. Michael, you're still there with us. I just want to encourage everyone, if you want to go to my wall, Doniel Katz, and you can share this with your family and friends on Facebook so more people see this.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of people. There's 502 people. Well, actually a full house, Gedalia. That's more than even expected here. So that's wonderful. Michael, what else is on the list today? Well, I turned the microphone off. There was a lot of feedback. Wait, now you're on.
Can you hear me now? I want to bring up really the elephant in the room, and really, and if you look at also the Q&As that's in the background, you know, everybody's talking about it, right? And really, what we're talking about is Mashiach, the times of Mashiach. You know, we see just the fact that what situation we're in right now, it's not normal. There's a lot of people from all different types of faiths, whatever, even in Judaism, whatever level you're at right now, there's an awakening. There's a big awakening happening right now. And I do believe that this is just going to get stronger and stronger as we go. My question to both of you guys is, what are your thoughts on that? And what do you think? I'm going to go first with, I want to hear this from Gedalia first. What are you thinking about that? And how do you feel right now a person should be getting ready, so to speak, for the times of Mashiach? And then I know, Rabbi, you're going to go into a lot of other Das stuff, and I can't wait to hear about this. But from Gedalia, from an Emunah perspective, having faith, we know that before Mashiach comes, you got to hold on to faith as strong as possible. So if you want to tap in on that, give me your thoughts.
Right. I mean, to be honest, unfortunately, because we're so busy with the world, and you know, we're all busy with our own things. You know, I wasn't really thinking about Mashiach that much before. You know, Rebbe Nachman doesn't speak that much about it. He speaks about it as nobody's going to come before Rebbe Nachman. There's not going to be any followers until Mashiach comes. But now, obviously, there's no question that with what's going on today, you start crying out for Mashiach, and we want to be saved as much as possible. But it's not, unfortunately, it's not something I really thought about that much before. I mean, it's maybe because I'm too stuck in my own world. But it's not something I said, yeah, let Mashiach come after the vacation. Let Mashiach come after the second quarter. Can you just wait for the Heat game to be over? Can you just wait for the we always, you know, we have this thing in our head. Yeah, let's just, you know, if you ask somebody when things are thriving, yeah, let it, you know, you ask a guy in some communities, do me a favor, can you come back after the summer, after my vacation? Because I got to go. It wasn't a convenient.
It's not so convenient. It's not so convenient.
Yeah. What do we need to share? We're good.
Listen, get your secretary to schedule a time that works for everyone, and we'll push it off till everyone has a clear availability.
Know about this Mashiach. When is it going to? What house I'm going to live in again? We it's not something, unfortunately, that I was thinking about even in this morning. Yesterday, I didn't put too much, but now obviously my perspective has changed completely, and I would say I haven't read that much on it. I don't. You could see in my classes. I don't speak that much about it because I don't know that much about it. But maybe that's the problem. I should have learned a lot more about it because we're too stuck in our own world, obviously. So that goes to show you that we're still too much in Olam Hazeh, clearly. So I think I would definitely have Rabbi Katz answer that question better than I am.
I think it's very interesting that was your approach.
I'm going to keep it honest. I mean, that's my...
No. There's something I want to say in this subject, and I want to be very, very careful, and I don't want to trigger anyone. But I think that there's a reason that's your approach, because it's not dissimilar from my approach, but it is dissimilar from a lot of people's approach. And can I be real with everybody? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. I don't want to, get people triggered. I'd much rather be nice and not, I'm getting yeses and yeses of courses. Only emes. So I think it's wrong to talk about Mashiach. And I know you're going to say, well, that's just so not Jewish. I think there's a reason that I don't talk about it so much. I think there's a reason Gedale doesn't talk about it so much. Michael, I don't know if you're a Mashiach guy. Listen, we're first in line when Mashiach comes. I'm first in line to say, Baruch Hashem, we have a mitzvah to wait from every day and hope from every day. But our sages warn constantly, do not try and predict the time of the coming of Mashiach. Number one, don't. Number two is psychologically, well, historically, there's been many worse things that have happened in history than the coronavirus, right? And there's 1,000 times people stood on the table and said, oh, this is the time Mashiach is coming, and he hasn't come. Now, we're not supposed to have years, we're not supposed to give up at all. But just to be honest and real with people, I think, I have to be very, very careful in my words. It's wrong to every time something bad says Mashiach comes. Let me give you newsflash number one. Mashiach does not need a disease to come. He can rock up anytime he pleases, number one. Number two is the Baal Shem Tov doesn't hold this is how Mashiach is going to come. The Baal Shem Tov and a lot of Hasidic masters hold that it's going to come through an increasing revelation of consciousness when all of the world is able to do spiritual elevations and connections like the Baal Shem Tov. And while I commit with all my heart and soul to be totally open and ready that he comes after this, I think that psychologically there's a kind of unhealthiness where when people are stuck in pain and they kind of go through this spiritual bypass and say, oh, must be Mashiach coming. There's so much death, there's so much, there must be Mashiach coming. And then what happens is there's tremendous disillusionment and frustration at the end when it could be that he doesn't come. And our sages, you know, there's a sage up in Tveria that I saw, Rav Kook there, who actually said, you know, sometimes people, he said something very, very strong. He said, sometimes when everyone's saying, Mashiach is coming, this is when Mashiach comes, he says, sometimes even that language can push off Mashiach. You know, Rebbe Nachman has a different mahalach, a different approach, and as do many other masters, that every single one of us has a portion of Mashiach within us. And it's not our responsibility to bang on the table and make demands, even though that's a high form of prayer. But sometimes it's a responsibility for us to go, which part of Mashiach am I here to reveal? And which part of my Nefesh Elokis, my divine soul, and my Yechida am I bringing through my avodas Hashem? And say, Hashem, I'm going to bring Mashiach with everything I have, and I will trust in your calculation at the right time that Mashiach has to come. There's a lot of tzaddikim in Kabbalah and Chassidus that say something very, very scary, and I also think awesome, which is we don't actually want Mashiach to come before his time. And that is because, and our sages are very clear about this, what happened when we left Egypt is 4/5 of the Jews died in the plague of darkness before we went out because they weren't spiritually ready and they weren't spiritually open. We all know the line, it's one thing to take a Jew out of Egypt, another to take Egypt out of the Jew. So as our sages already say that there's a possibility that will repeat. That means if people aren't ready, their hearts aren't ready, their souls aren't ready, there's still, when Mashiach's going to walk up, he's going, hey, this is not what was on our schedule. I still did another 2 months. Then there will be a price for that. And the Hasidic masters all said what we want to do is we want to elevate the world. We want to heal the world. We want to elevate human consciousness. We want to make the place of the world a heaven on earth. And therefore, when Mashiach comes, more and more, and everyone will be able to jump on board that and be connected to that. So I'm concerned as a rabbi when other teachers jump on the bandwagon and say Mashiach must be here, because there's been terrible situations. Listen, Mashiach didn't come after the Holocaust. He can come now. He can come next year. He doesn't need a virus to do this. And we don't know. We absolutely hope and we absolutely can pray. But I also hope and pray that the world is able to open up to the concept of revelation, the concept of high connection, the concept of deeper ownership, to find their own messianic soul and spark and say what in their life of their ego, of their fear, of their lust, you know, what's causing them to sell out their own Mashiach and focus on bringing that. And then we trust when we do that, again, that critical mass, that we can bring the world over and bring more of our brothers or sisters along for the ride. So, Michael, I'm a little cautious about the overspeech on that. Did I offend anybody out there? You can let me know in the chat if I triggered anyone. But I think that has to be. I think that has to be kept in context. Absolute yearning, absolute praying, demand Mashiach, but also trusting there's a process and trusting there's pros and cons of when he comes. What do you think, Gedale? You're right or wrong? What do you have to add or subtract?
Yeah, pretty much. I believe exactly that. I think even Rav Nachman says in lesson 272, I remember, that they asked him, when is Mashiach coming? He says, today. That means you can live the consciousness of Mashiach as long as you're living in the present. If you're living in the present, it's like you're in the Geula itself. So it's you know, you see very few people living in the present today. So
Yeah.
his message in Rav Nachman is live in the present, and that's considered, like he says, when is Mashiach going to come? Today. So he was referring to a person like living the present, and that's considered like you have a little bit of a gula, already.
Right. The Talmud says that the Dalet Amos of a Talmud Chacham, that the personal space around a spiritual master, even in Chutz La'aretz, even in the middle of America, has the holiness of Eretz Yisrael. When a person's living in the moment, connected in the highest way spiritually, living with the utter spiritual integrity, then they are living, in the Dalet Amos of Mashiach. Now, yes, but that's a parable. It's not the real thing. Well, so we believe that.
Right.
It's a parable. But Rebbe Nachman is saying, obviously, he's teaching us more in the parable. He's talking it's a spiritual mechanism. And if you would step in to your Dalet Amos of Mashiach, and you would step into your Dalet Amos Mashiach, and we would all do that, then it would shift beyond the parable, and actually draw that down into a reality. But if we're not willing to own ourselves, but we're willing to just go, Mashiach, 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 then again, we're avoiding responsibility and opportunity, and there's consequence to that. So I think it's a fine line. So that's my shita here, even though I am definitely triggering some people. When I mention that, I've stopped mentioning that on Facebook because I trigger some people on that subject. But they are my thoughts on the matter.
I always you can't make everybody happy. You can't make everybody happy, Rabbi.
Well, you told me that last week, but that was that's off the record. But that was much appreciated, my friend. Okay, Michael, what's next? Wait. We turned off your mic just because it's getting some feedback. You're on now.
No worries. So let's jump away a little bit from the topic of Mashiach, which again, there's like a lot of questions on this, but let's go to more. I have a practical question for both of you guys. Gedale, obviously you speak a lot, obviously, and you preach a lot of Breslov mentality, Rabbi Nachman, and you quote him tremendously throughout all your classes. Rabbi Katz, you're no stranger to Breslov, obviously yourself, very much connected to Rabbi Nachman. We obviously all been together in Uman before. I'd like to know if you guys could tell a little bit about the world. First of all, how did you jump into Rabbi Nachman in the first place? And why does he speak to you? And why does he speak to our generation? And what's the ultimate message that you feel that combines all of us here, and really why his teachings are right now flying in full colors?
Gedale, you're on.
It's a big question, Michael. I think Rabbi Nachman teaches us to draw our wisdom instead of just acquiring wisdom. Bring the wisdom into your heart. That was one of the things about Rebbe Nachman's teachings. I remember years ago going into, let's say, Orthodox synagogues and feeling nothing, and just feeling a complete page 342. It had no life force. I had no renewal, no warmth. And I think that's when I started reading Rebbe Nachman's teachings about how to deal with pain and how to deal with, how to expect obstacles in our lives, and how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And he just related to me, it just related to my everyday life, and how to deal with my emotions, and how to deal with my times where I feel completely despair or pain. It was nothing in Chassidut except for the Baal Shem Tov, obviously, but nothing like Rebbe Nachman's teachings that really related to the person on an everyday level like it's done today. There's not. When I can go speak in front of my facilities to 60 non-Jews, and all of a sudden I'm cloaking the whole 12 steps into Rabbi Nachman. It's like kissing. It's like heaven and earth are kissing together, because he clearly said that the whole world needs his teachings. So his teachings are for the person who's on the highest level. Person who's on the highest level, Rabbi Nachman will tell him that he really doesn't know anything. And on the person on the lowest level, he'll tell him that don't give up and God loves you. So he was able to mesh that two combinations between high and low, and it's something that everybody can relate to. It's a teaching that teaches you how to not be judgmental. It teaches you how to become the best version of yourself. It teaches you patience. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you. There's nothing. I could take Rabbi Nachman's teachings and write a book on top performance on it. There's nothing in the world that I have not seen that Rabbi Nachman has spoke about. So it's basically the consciousness of seeing Rabbi Nachman's teachings in every conversation that I see today. So it's basically bringing down the Torah to my heart. I think that's what Rebbe Nachman did for me. He was able to, that I could see outside things in my life and literally bring them down into my heart. And that's what obviously spoke so much to me about. And I think every Jew wants that. Every Jew wants to feel that the euphoric experience. Every Jew wants to feel that, you know, to feel excited, to wake up in the morning and know they have a connection with God. Every Jew wants that. And Rebbe Nachman didn't tell you had a dress code. You can dress in Gucci. You can dress in Hasidus. There's no dress code, because it's not about the exterior. It's about the interior. It's about the heart. And that's what I love so much about him. And that's what today it's so nice that I can, you know, go to a gym and all of a sudden I can carve people in the gym. I don't know, Nachman teaching. There's no everything. And Rav Nachman also knew that many people are not going to be able to handle Torah directly, whether because they had an experience with a rabbi, or whether they had a bad parent that was religious and they got turned away. So Rav Nachman says, first you have to speak to people in regular conversations. Give them stories. Give them regular conversations. And then through those regular conversations, you're gonna light something up in them. And that's a lot what I do today. I speak to people about regular conversations, and then we bring them closer to Rabbi Nachman's teachings. And that's the bliss to see it all together. When I go to an event in New York and I see religious people, non-religious people, where I go to an event in South Beach and I got a nice crowd, or I go to, I forgot where I went in Muncie or whatever. Everybody needs it. We're all the same. It teaches everybody we're all the same. And that's what really I love so much about Rebbe Nachman's teachings.
Amazing. Well, first of all,
Williamsburg, there you go.
Williamsburg, also a nice crowd.
I always say from South Beach to Williamsburg. Only Rebbe Nachman from South Beach to Williamsburg.
That's a big Madriga, Gedale, if you get a nice crowd there. They need all the chizuk they can get right now. First of all, I'll have what he's having. I'm 100% with you and everything that you just said beautifully. I have a very complex relationship with Rebbe Nachman in the fact, there's only so many things you can say out loud in an appropriate way. But there's a few core tzaddikim which I feel are within me and building me, and I'm connected to, without naming names. And Rebbe Nachman is not the only one for me, but he's a core part of that. And there's a whole funny interaction I had with the Baal Shem Tov when he said he feels that I need Rebbe Nachman, and I had to ask the Baal Shem Tov's permission. But there's a whole, for me, I'll talk about a general way what I think he offers, and then I'll talk a little from my heart about what I think, he's given me and what he means to me on a personal level. That I think that there's two streams of Judaism that have been for thousands of years, and especially, unfortunately, there are two streams in our generation still. One was the one idea of dibina, of intellect, of halacha, of details, of understanding. And then there was the parallel, the Kabbalistic, the prophetic, the supernatural stream. And, until the times of the temple, really, they were really one and the same. But after the first exile and the beginning from the second exile, a world, a tradition, our understanding of reality really became fragmented. There's the Talmud and the halacha and the details, the intellectual analysis, which when a person doesn't have the spiritual connection, that's our foundation. But there's a whole other stream of revelation, of insight, of heart connection, of revelation, of personal experience, understanding, of seeing the unity in everything, the path of compassion, the path of love. Rav Kook says that the problem of the separation between the Talmud, the halachic parts of the Talmud, and the Agadata, the mystical parts of the Talmud, and we still learn them separately. Or in yeshiva, we often only learn the halachic parts and skipped over and ignored the other side. And we know from every great Kabbalistic text, and even from the Talmud itself, and the Ari and the Zohar and the Leshem and every Hasidic text, that at the end of the days, those separate streams will come back and reintegrate together. As Rav Kook says, we will learn halacha and agadata together, that we will have the spiritual and the practical, the transcendent and the intellectual. We will have the halacha, but we will experience supernatural experiences through the halacha. We'll have the head and we'll have the heart, right? And we will rebuild and reintegrate everything together. For me, for me, the turnaround point in history is the Baal Shem Tov, who I feel so profoundly close to, as much as I can scratch my way in. You know, that's why I put the core of my heart, that he was not just, the time has come to reveal the spiritual, mystical, transcendent, heartfelt parts of Judaism, but it was to go global and bring that back literally down to the potato farmers. And he literally has a quote that even from his generation and onwards, the souls of every single one of us has changed. There used to be spiritual people, and then emotional people and practical people, so to speak. And then he said, now we are all included with all those elements. So because in the final ascent to the Messianic period, human consciousness and Jewish consciousness had changed, that even the potato farmers now became spiritually open for heartfelt transformation experiences. Halacha wasn't enough in of itself. It was a body without a soul, and that was coming back. So he mainstreamed that and opened up the channel. For me, what Rebbe Nachman did, Rebbe Nachman is the lowest of the highest. You know, we all know that there's three classic texts of Chassidus, so to speak, more or less. There's the Noam Elimelech, which is called the Sefer Tzadikim, the book of the spiritual masters, and there's the Tanya, which is called the Sefer Beinonim, for people, you know, who can go high and go low. And funny enough, Likutei Moharan is called the Sefer Rishayim. It's the book for Rishayim, the book for sinners. And nobody in their right mind thinks that it's because it's a book that sinners learn. But it's you know, some people say to me, if Rebbe Nachman's so high, why are these drug addicts, you know, reading it, jumping up and down in traffic lights? And I always say Rebbe Nachman's so high that he can even get the drug addicts who are jumping up and down in traffic lights. Right. So for me, when I study Chassidus in depth, and I just blow out of my body how deep and how profound, even the Baal Shem Tov didn't have a chance to bring it all the way down. And I really feel Rebbe Nachman takes the core of Chassidus and he drops it one level to open up to everybody. Right? And he gives a system of understanding, of intellect, of knowledge, of wisdom, of practice. And you know, people think that, you know, Rebbe Nachman's all in self-help stuff. It's all like, you know, the whole world is a very narrow bridge. These are people who never read Likutei Moharan. It's one of those intellectually genius, off-the-charts books, right? Right. But he had the genius to say to, you know, Rebbe Nassid, you know, but to make Likutei Eitzes or make Likutei Tefillas, he knew how to create a system, a simple system that works, that's effective. You know, of all the Chassidus I know, and it's very hard for me to say about myself, I am Breslov. Ask my kids, they always say, what are we? Some say, you know, we're Geschmack Yidden, we're Chassidim with the Baal Shem Tov. I have a really different way of saying it. But there's a power that Rebbe Nachman had to bring it all the way down and in, to create a unified system that everyone can jump on, everyone can get value from, that everyone can access in the simplest way. And if you're a genius, he can meet you on that level. And if your heart is broken, he will come down, you know, his Torah comes down to that level, and the Voda comes down to that level. It's pretty unprecedented. And to add to that, you know, what is sometimes more controversial to some people, but it's not really, if you know, souls of great masters are present. And they're particularly present when people learn their teachings and follow their path. And there's tzaddikim in our generation, even not Breslovers, that often say that while we all have something called schus avos, we can all connect to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Isaac, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and all the masters, the more recent the masters, the easier they are to latch onto, energetically, spiritually. And I've seen for so many people, when they make a spiritual connection to Rebbe Nachman, it's literally a force helping them. Just like we have schus avos, that's not a voda zara, that's a normal part of Judaism. You know, all the great tzaddikim, Eliyahu Navi comes. There's many great tzaddikim and masters that help us, but there's really a supernatural energy there. And in the same way, similar, a lot of people around the world have had supernatural connections to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and there's an opening and there's a channel there for help. I've seen unbelievable people have incredible breakthroughs on supernatural level by his kashrus to the tzaddik connecting to that. And for myself, I've just found that I understand. I'm going to just be very real. We're in a moment in history where we all have to be extremely real. And Gedale was very authentic in his beginning. There's a tremendous energetic support from Rebbe Nachman that I've seen in my own life of connecting to that tzaddik. In the darkest periods, learning his teachings, I mamish felt he was whispering avodas and techniques and Torahs into my ear as I was connecting to his sefer, right? And I mamish feel that's with me. I feel it's a tremendous gift that it's a tremendous gift that you can give someone as a connection to that tzaddik on that level. And there's tremendous blessing. You know, Gedale, I think you're a very talented guy, but I have no doubt that part of your hetzlacha comes from your dedication to the tzaddik. I'm sure you would say the same. He raises us up. He mamish raises us up. You know, what?
I think today I have over 800 classes on WhatsApp or on Facebook or on SoundCloud. There's no way in the world I would be able to get these ideas. These ideas come when I basically ask Hashem, what do you want me to speak about today? Point me to the Torah you want me to speak about. And literally I get guided directly to that. Has nothing to do with me. I'm just the vehicle for this stuff to come through. Again, I have 5 kids. I run businesses. I have tons of things. There's no way I can come up with these ideas. It's just, there's no way. It's all coming from simplicity, his bodedut, and asking God, what practically can I do to help people today? Tell me, and it's nothing more but ultimate simplicity. And this is where I get the ideas from. Exactly.
Amazing. So for me, there's a bunch of Kos Tzadikim from the time of the Baal Shem Tov. There's a few before that. For me, there's the Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Tanya, Rebbe Nachman, the Piazetzna, and Rav Kook. And I kind of think, you know, the Piazetzna brings the avoda down to the experiential level, the Aslavis, the emotional connection. I think Rav Kook brings down hashkafically and philosophically. He explains our generation. I bought you that book, right?
I loved it.
I think no one philosophically explains our generation and the spiritual opportunity is profoundly as what Kook lays out. I always say, you know, he was so ahead of his time. He's still ahead of his time, and I still think his teachers are gonna kind of usher us into Mashiach with Rebbe Nachman, Piazetzna Rebbe, and you know, altogether, I think the Baal Shem Tov is that opened up the channels and ushers them all forward and channels them all forward. And that's where the blessing is. And, you know, I see whatever success I've had as teaching, and I see, you know, your extraordinary success. It's that tapping into Chassidus, that experiential teachings, the heartfelt teachings, to explain our modern reality, to explain our inner reality. I think that's where the blessing is, and that's where explosion of holiness is. Rebbe Nachman really feels that everyone can be a tzaddik. And he turns on that energy in people. And in a way that's just really supernatural, and he makes that possible, and he's pouring into the generation to open up those opportunities. And it's you know, I just like, you know, you'd be stupid if you know what's out there. You're stupid not to latch onto that, because it's really profound.
You know, it's funny. Yeah, I get this very typical phone calls. You know, you get the guy who's already read, you know, Shas 4 times, but he's about to get a divorce, right? And you know, this guy has to already come down, because he could read the whole Shas, but if he doesn't have the simple, which Rav Nachman says, what's the key to Shalom Bayit? Shutting your mouth. Don't v'yishtok. It's not all about you. So you see, people are very, very wise and very, very smart, but they can't build rapport even with their own wives. They can't even connect with their own wives, because they don't recognize that a relationship with your wife, you have to ask Hashem to help you with that. But you could see that people sometimes are learning Torah to become smarter or to become a Talmid Chacham, but they're not learning it to humble themselves. They're not learning it to say, how can I bring this Torah to my wife? How can I connect her? So you see tons of people, Shalom Bayit issues, because it's trying to learn a Gemara with his wife instead of saying, shut your mouth, become a listener. It's not all about you. So the best definition of humility is, it's not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. And this is what Rebbe Nachman's teaching us. Stop thinking about yourself all the time. Think of yourself less. That means you do have that nikuda, you do have that good point in there, but it's not all about you. The kavod goes to Hashem. And if we understand today what's this whole issue is, COVID-19, and the first thing that name comes to me, COVID-19, honor. It's who are we giving the honor to? And 19 represents the name of Chava. So Rav Nachman says, what's the recipe for any disaster? What's the recipe for any chaos in our lives? The recipe for any chaos in our lives is to bind ourselves to Ma, to the Shem Ma. And that's the name of humility. That's the name of Adam. That's the name of humility. So we know that Ma hayenu, ma hanachnu, ma hazdenu. So that's
What am I? What is
powerless.
my worth? What is my value? That humility, right?
Yeah. What am I? Who am I? What do I know? What do I know? Maybe this is the greatest blessing in the world, this coronavirus. What do I know? It's only our egos that tells us, no, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is that. We don't know anything. So the approach of Ma, you can't lose, because when a client says, or an addict says, I'm powerless, and he exercises the first step, he already takes the batteries out of the ego. The ego is gone. The ego can only live when you say I. But when you say Ma, you basically destroy the ego. You open up perspective, and then a person is able to all of a sudden receive a light on why the situation is happening in our lives. So
this is, yeah. So what are you saying? Finish this.
So the whole thing is COVID-19 is Chava, is disorder. Chava's whole problem was she wanted she wanted to be in control. She wanted to be in control. She wanted the honor for herself instead of Adam. Adam represents order. So we know that 45 minus 19 is that 26. It's the Shem Yud Chei Vav Kei is out of the picture. The ego edges got out. So when you hear COVID-19, it's teaching me there's a problem where people think it's they're running their businesses, they're running their things, their success. Again, back to the hands. I'm successful. Instead of going back to the simplicity of saying, you are absolutely nothing without Hashem. And everything is up to Hashem. If Hashem gives it to you, He gives it. But everything is a gift from Hashem. And I think that's the world. You tell a guy who's successful and tell him, listen, the only reason why you're successful is because Hashem's giving it to you. He said, what are you talking about? What? This is my business. I'm smart. When you recognize that I am nothing without Hashem, you can't lose. You can't lose. You can't lose. And I think that recipe of the difference between the Kain and Hevel. Hevel represents I'm nothing. Hevel. Kain represents acquisitions. So
right.
back to that whole concept that everything's from Hashem. I'm nothing without Hashem. And that's what Rebbe Nachman really taught me. How to go back to order. Anytime there's chaos, it's because there's a lack of humility. What do we need to fix the war? Milchama. What do we need to war? Melech ma. You're in a war right now? You got to go back to ma. You got to go back to humility. And I think this is what this is teaching us today.
That's beautiful. That's much beautiful. I think the bigger building on what you're saying, jamming on what you're saying, I think the biggest dimion, the biggest delusion, the core of every Yetzer Hara is that I'm trying to have yeshus. I'm trying to have a self in the world. I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to get over my blocks. I'm trying to have hetzlacha, trying to access by any definition. And this whole thing about giving up yourself for God, it's terrifying. Do you know what I mean? I need to understand what's going on. And if I don't understand what's going on, then what? Then it's just the end of everything. Is it? Like, what actually is it? And I think there's a thing that we assume that the most that we have is us and our perfected self. In personal development, I'm going to be tremendously successful and talented. I'm going to break through overcome all my emotional blocks and be smarter. And that's what we teach. But it's not really what we're teaching, because you're not trying to become the best version of you, period. What is the best version of you? And so this is the core of Chassidus that a lot of people misunderstand, the idea of bittul yesh. Right, which I'm trying to nullify myself. And this is the primary fear that people have. This is our primary fear of death. I mean, when you die, according to Kabbalah, you leave your body behind, you move into a world of tremendous light, the olam and neshamas, and you get revelation and connection. It's awesome to die at the end of the day. So why are people terrified of it? So on an external level, people want to hold on to life. We want to be productive. We want to do mitzvahs. We want to accomplish our goals. We're afraid to let go. It's because the core idea is that we assume that our sense of self is the greatest success we can have. And a fully developed sense of self is the greatest success we can have. And the truth that, speaking to the depth of what you just said, is there's something greater you can have than yourself, which is the release of the self. Now, the release of the self sounds terrifying, but the secret is, as you were just saying, the word ma, which is the humility, ma nachnu, what am I am nothing, right? So that's the same gematria as Adam. Which is a very deep thing. The Adam, the person, is actually revealed once I say, who am I? So it's not from a Hasidic perspective, the nullification of self doesn't actually mean that you cease to exist. It truly means, bitul yesh, means you nullify the false self, the ego self, in order to reveal the true self, the divine self, the Adam Elyon, right? Which is, the, that's what we're saying, that the personal Messiah that we all have within us. So it's a very deep idea that by saying Ma, I don't know, Hashem knows, I relinquish and release, I let go and I let God, right? By actually releasing that, it's not just that I don't have a self and now there's a God. It's actually I don't have my lower self, but I reveal my divine higher self. And that's the hint that the word Ma, which is the ultimate humility, actually has the word Adam, meaning the Adam Elyon, Adam Elyon, which means I become similar, I become like the divine. So it's not just that you let the divine, you let God, but you actually let the God within you be truly empowered, the Das Elyon, when we relinquish our ego need to hold on. Right? So, these are exactly the same ideas. And this idea about Kavod to Chava, we were saying in a class the other day, that, Chava means the Shechina, and Chava means Am Yisrael. And because she's the feminine version, the manifesting version of the divine. There's the Yud Hey Vav Hey, the transcendent. And then there's the divine presence revealed and manifest in the world. That's the feminine. And that's embodied by Chava. Chava comes from the word chias, which means life, and energy, which means anything which is alive, according to our sages, is anything that's connected to a source that's alive. And anything that's disconnected to a source means it's dead. That's why the spiritual masters, the Talmud says the difference between the spiritual masters and the Rishayim, the evil people, is that the evil people are dead even when they're alive. And the spiritual masters are alive even when they're dead. So what does that mean? That a spiritual master literally leaves the world, but they still have consciousness. They can still reveal divinity in everything because they're connected to source all the time. But Rishayim, destructive people, evil people, sinners, they're people that even when they're physically alive, they're completely spiritually disconnected, emotionally disconnected. They have no revelation of self, etc. So this idea of what it means to take kavod, as we've been talking about Rebbe Nachman. Rebbe Nachman says we have to stop taking kavod. Kavod means honor. It means attention. It means focus.
Right.
We have to stop taking it for ourselves. We have to give it back to Hashem. Exactly. So 19 is numerical value of the Shechina, right? Of Chava, of Shechina. That's what it's about, of Chava, which represents the Shechina. So Hashem's saying kavod 19. He's saying you're losing Wall Street, you're losing Hollywood, you're losing fashion, you're losing money, right? Go back into bidud. Bidud means isolation. Bidud is gematria havayas, gematria yud hey vav hey. Go back to the yud hey vav hey and go give kavod back to the Shechina. Give kavod back to Am Yisrael. How many people do you see every day now awakening as Jews, lighting Shabbos candles, connecting their deeper sense, supporting each other, and coming back to Shechina, coming back to things that matter, divine revelation in our lives, in our families, in our communities. The Baal Shem Tov, I just did a post about this on Facebook. The Baal Shem Tov says the highest prayer you can have is not for your own suffering, but the Shechina's suffering. It's not just that there's people dying in my community, but there's sickness in the Shechina. And when we pray for the health of the Shechina, we give kavod to 19, kavod to Chava, then we can draw a tremendous blessing. And the way we do that is get over our own ego. That's the Ma, that's the humility, to step into the Adam. Bitul yesh, nullification of self. In Chassidus doesn't mean you destroy yourself, you eliminate yourself. Right? It means you destroy and eliminate your lower self to reveal your higher, truer self, your divine self. And that's what we're giving kavod to. That's the bidud. That's what we're self-isolating, coming back to the divinity. The bidud is gematria havaya, yud and hey and vav hey, the name of God. And that awakening of the falseness, the letting go of the falseness to reveal the ultimate truth within is the messianic pivot, with giving kavod back to Hashem. So I think, that idea of letting go is not, you're not letting go and you're being nullified. You're letting go in the fact that you're revealing something higher. And if you can, when you step into that, when you pivot into that, there's no greater pleasure. It's not terrifying to let go of yourself. It is until you let go. And then it's truly a revelation that we always seek.
Beautiful, Rabbi. You took it to another level.
That's what we're just jamming together. That's what we're doing. It's called harmony, I think. Well, where are we up to? We're doing this for an hour now.
Beautiful.
All right, let me continue. Actually, Rabbi, you were speaking about the idea of self-isolation, which is going to lead me now to another topic, which I know both of you guys are very passionate about. And obviously, Rebbe Nachman brought it down as the most important thing to do, which is
Michael, I'm sorry to make you run. Can I just encourage everybody to like or love this on Facebook so more people see you? Share the lights. It's an algorithm thing. Or share it or like it or love it, whatever you do, so more people will see it, and then we can share it with the world. Yes, Rebbe Michael, please.
So we were talking about Rabbi Nachman, and we're talking about what he believes is one of the highest thing, if not the highest thing to do, which is hibodedut, which is the idea of personal prayer in isolation. Ironically, we're talking about being quarantined, right? And hopefully you can even try to do, it's ironic, we're in quarantine, but good luck trying to do hibodedut with 1 million kids in your house and and everybody getting your attention all day long. It's kind of interesting, but you got to take the messages as they come from Hashem. And so the idea of hibodedut, I think, is something that I know Gedale has been talking about since day one. Rabbi, you as well, talk about hibodedut. Now, what I find interesting is when I originally, many years ago, when Gedale was talking about hibodedut, he looked at it from at that time, speaking about it on a very practical level. I'm just going to go and speak to Hashem. And I'm going to talk to him. And we know about the different formulas, gratitude, talking about your shortcomings, so to speak, and then asking for what you need. Now, and that's something that, at least for myself, I always practiced and did. Rabbi, you came into the fold when I started speaking to you about hibodedut, and you started talking to me on another different angle. Maybe it seems to be like a higher level angle. I'm not really sure. But the idea that hibodedut should be something you're speaking to God and you're getting responses back in real time. I want to talk about both strategies. I want to understand that on a deeper level so people also understand it, because right now hibodedut is something that's very easy to do to an extent. It's difficult, but it's easy. And it's something that practical that most people can do. And Rabbi, I'm sure maybe you do talk about it in your own programs on how do you achieve that, etc. So the stage is yours.
Well, I'm happy to hear whoever wants to speak, but I do want to say I totally hear how you've set it up with the distinction between Gedale's approach and my approach, but I'm convinced there is no distinction. Because even Gedale has said to me many times, he even said now, the amount of downloads, the amount of insights he gets about classes, material, so there's nobody who's really doing his bodhidus. Unfortunately, some people that teach his bodhidus do this, but no one who's really doing it properly thinks that you're literally just standing there saying some words. There's a woman that said to me recently, I've been quoting this a lot, that, there's certain things that we teach about how to turn on his bodhidus on a supernatural level. And I just teach it straight from Rebbe Nachman himself. Michael, that's what we're learning in Uman. Right? We sat in the Vessel of Sane and we spent 3 hours talking about that in impromptu sense. And there are techniques that you can learn. But there's one woman that learned that, and she said to me, a very sweet woman, she said, I've literally been doing his bodhidus for 6 years, and for the first time I realized it was wrong. I said, what do you mean wrong? She said, until now I've just been, standing next to a tree talking to myself. And she said, but now it's a conversation between me and Hashem. Now, a conversation means a dialogue. His Buddha does, Rebbe Nachman says very clearly, it's a conversation between you and Hashem. A conversation, I don't know, when we have a conversation, Michael, it's not usually one of us talking to the other person, just, staring out, doing something else. There's a back and forward like we're doing right now. And anybody that's doing his Buddha properly feels tremendous release from the experience. They feel sometimes an opening and a connection in a very profound way. They feel like they get Ruach HaKodesh, they get insights, they get clarity. Some people hear it as a voice, some people get it as a shift, some people it just comes in understanding. And I actually think, I don't think that's what Gedale does, only just talking at words out loud in a simple way. I know people, including people that unfortunately teach his bodhidus, and they get sometimes upset what I teach, and they go, no, why are you making it so complex? It's very, very simple. So I think that when things are done well, they're incredibly simple. But when people are caught in themselves, they need sometimes a little craft, a little awareness, right, of how to shift into a deeper place. And when you just say, go to the forest and talk, Rebbe Nachman says things like that as well. But he also talks about whole processes of opening up and connecting in a deeper way as part of that process. So my goal is, if you tell me you go to the forest to talk and you really feel close to Hashem and you really feel he's with you and you release and you heal and you open, you get guidance, then good, you keep it simple. You only need to do it simple because you just have the natural innate ability to connect. And some people, like any craft in the world, they need a little bit more craft. How do they center their mind? How do they focus themselves? How do they calm that anxiety? Do they need to breathe a little before? What do they need to do? And then suddenly they are really having the full experience. Rebbe Nachman says that through his Buddhism, we can come to Ruach HaKodesh, we can come close to the Nevuah, we can get access to the Oreganos. You know, he's not talking about it in an oversimplified way, though I'm sure when a person's heart and soul are open, they can approach in a simple way and access it, like anything in the world, right? So there's a skill, there's a talent side, and there's a craft side, and both are necessary. But some people will present it in different ways. I'm being a bit harif today. Some people teach it and they don't do it themselves. And I think that they oversimplify it. Just go and talk to your father. So if you go talk to your father and you feel your father's with you, then that's amazing. I've got no complaints. But if someone says you go talk to your father and you're just in the forest saying, I've been here for an hour, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm not feeling connected, I'm just actually going around. A few times when we're teaching people in seminars, when we just teach this part of this, people then actually will stand up and say, oh my gosh, I realized that as I was taking to Hashem, I was actually just going around in circles in my own thoughts and fears. I wasn't even talking about it. I was just thinking about how messed up I am, and that would be the end of the hour. So I always say, is there any relief? Do you find any breakthrough, any clarity? Is it giving you chizik? No, no, no. So I think then you've oversimplified the process and you need to be opened up. And I've had some of the highest experiences of my life doing his Buddhist, only as Rebbe Nachman says. And I think that anyone that really takes it seriously, and anyone that has, like you can see in Gedale when he talks about it, there's a magic in his eyes and a smile in his eyes where he talks about that moment. He's not just talking out some words in a forest next to a tree. It's a process that's opening them up in an incredible way. And they're the ones that get it. And that's what to tune in and listen to.
I mean, in my way, it's getting myself, like I can't control my Hizbodedut. One day, all of a sudden, I'll start talking about things that I don't even know how I got there. The whole point is getting yourself in a state of joy and excitement. So I put on music, I put peppermint oil, I breathe, I get myself in a good state of gratitude, and then the flow comes.
Okay, so I just go to the flow. Right. You see, that's not just going to the forest. First, he did this weird thing with peppermint oil. He's using music. He's doing Hakara Sataf. He's opening himself up. He's focusing his mind. He's creating a state to open up a deeper experience.
Correct. Exactly. It's not like, and what happens is there's times where you do have to come with a broken heart, and you beg for help. And that's the whole point. Rav Nachman says in lesson 34, it's you're serving God with the nekuda, with the point that you're at in your life at that moment. One moment right now, I need major chizuk, so my approach will be completely different. You're not a robot. I mean, otherwise we could say, Alexa, do an hour of Hizbodedut for me. You know, people need to understand. They need a heart. They need to stop with the too much judgment, too much control. They just need to go and talk to the Creator with their heart. It's too much control. Am I doing it right? Am I answering right? Blah blah blah. Just talk your heart, and it's so important. It's like a child speaking to his father, and I think that's what's missing in this world. It's just nobody's real. Just be real. Talk to Hashem. Don't worry about the results. Don't watch the scoreboard. Put some music, get yourself in a state of simcha, and I promise you the words will come out like flow. Sometimes in the beginning, sometimes you're going to be tested to see if you really want it, if you really want it enough. So the first 6 months of my Hizbodedut, I didn't receive anything. Because a person says, it's like meditating. When you first start meditating, you're going to get 1,000 things in your head. And then little by little it gets better. And little by little it gets better. So as our consciousness becomes clear, and we clear out the junk before, you'll see it's an experience that I can't even explain. And when you feel it's Robert, I got this from you one time in your class. That what's the problem with public speaking? You gave a whole class on this, and it's when the person is worried about what people are going to think. And all of a sudden, when a person's worried about what people are going to think, it's going to disrupt his signal from Hashem. But when a person goes and does a public class, like he's doing his Bodedut, then the flow comes. And it's almost exactly like that thing. I think you took that from the Baal Shem Tov, correct?
Sure.
And it's exactly that. It's not thinking about what are people going to say. I'm not thinking, am I doing it right? Not thinking what time it is. this. These are all energy blockers. Just letting it go, and just connecting to yourself, to gratitude and simcha, and just going with the flow. And that's what I see. That's where the words come out.
Right. So I think you're saying something very simple, but you're also saying for some people it's very complex. You know, when you say let it go, some people don't know how to do that. And that's where it becomes, some people, it actually is a very complex thing because they've never let go once in their life at all. For the first time that you tell them to go to the forest, they don't know how to let go. They don't know how to get out of their mind. And all that they heard that it's supposed to be a high experience. So they're trying to have a high experience. You know, you're supposed to be like a child talking to your father, but we've never been children for years. We were taught we have to be grown up. I have to be a man now. I can't be a child. So that naivety, that simplicity, that trust for some people has to be awakened and explored. And rediscovered and reclaimed almost. Gedale, I'm curious to push you on this. I don't know if you talk about this in depth in your classes. What exactly do you do? I'm sure the audience is very interested to hear this in depth. Like, do you go to a forest every day? Let's say we're not in a coronavirus reality.
Either I go outside of my intercoastal on my balcony, or I'll go to some kind of park. But
and do you
actually my house my house, or depending on the time I wake up.
Right. And you always do the peppermint oil thing? Is that something you do every time?
I do it because it I get 2-3 minutes of good breathing, because I figure if I'm not breathing correctly, it disrupts me. So the peppermint really, really works. But remember, not every time do I start with that explosion experience. Let's get that straight. There's times where if I'm having an argument with my wife, the first thing is to deal with that issue and saying, am I looking at this the wrong way? Help me look at it the wrong way. That means if I'm walking around with stress, if I'm walking around with negativity, then I deal with the negativity. I just like a massage.
Right. So let's just talk that out for a second. So it's not like you're just walking outside, you the peppermint or you're going. First, you have to be very real with where you're up to. You have to start right with the block in front of you. Right.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes I don't have those blockages. I don't have those blockages. I feel great. I have trust. Then I can just go and go get into that mode. It's just like a workout, I would say. There's days you feel pumped to go work out and you just go and there's no problem. There's days that it takes you 30-20 minutes to warm up, to get warmed up, and then the workout comes, and that workout sometimes is better than the other ones. So it's depending on the stress level or depending on the situation in my life is the approach that I use. But obviously, if I'm in a stressful situation in my life, it's because that I'm tired. It's because I'm not praying about that thing. I'm holding that thing in. Because the reason why I'm exhausted is because I'm holding it in. If I didn't hold it in, I wouldn't be exhausted. So I deal with the issue, like what Nachman says in lesson 9, that prayer is your life force. That means the reason why I don't feel like praying is because I'm exhausted, or because I'm giving energy to something else. So just like lesson 9, look at the Moran, that prayer is my life force. So it's an indication that I'm exhausted. Why I'm exhausted is because I haven't prayed. Once I pray, all of a sudden the energy comes back, because I deal with the issues that are causing me to be exhausted in the first place, whether it's controlling business, or whether it's controlling not having an expectation with my wife, or trying to control this situation. That's what's exhausting me. But if I prayed about those issues, I really wouldn't be exhausted. Right.
So the challenges we're facing are A, depleting us, and not allowing to access the energy within, right? So if you take away the depleting mechanisms and replug your phone, your soul into the wall, into the source, then we get the recharge. And we get the recharge.
I think Rebbe Katz says, the point of prayer is that you should desire better things. I should desire to forgive that person instead of holding a grudge. I should desire better things, to want better things in a good tefillah.
Right. Open up to the place that does. No, that's awesome. I think that for myself, I like asking people that are serious about their vote to tell me all the details. Sometimes I annoy Sadiqim by saying, like, what do you do? Like for me, there's a big principle when we teach elevation, is the block to having a spiritual experience is itself, the window to have a greater spiritual experience.
That's what you do. You work on the blockages. That's exactly
what you do. But that's a big chiddush. Meaning that the default mechanism is Yeshiva Das and Devekas and then his Bodhidus, which means the normal path in is you clear your mind, mindfulness, right? The settling of the mind, number one. Then you connect to Sadiqim and Lashem's light, and then you're open and expansive, right? We're taking certain techniques. And then when you feel that light and the energy and that blessing, then you begin that dialogue. And that's what the direct path, simple path that I take. But sometimes I come in and I'm frustrated about something or I'm blocked about something. And when I teach as Bodhidus to people who have been doing it a long time but don't know how to do it, first I teach how to calm their mind and get a little light. And then I say, if you have one sentence right now to say to Hashem, which is the most authentic thing you could possibly say about where you are now, just say it in a sentence. You know, I'm sick of my wife.
Beautiful.
And I say, just be silent. And then I say, now what's the next sentence you would say from that? And just from that, and people have unbelievable experiences if they can just be very real and authentic and start there. So people that do it wrong, they're trying to get to the light, but they keep being frustrated about their life. They're trying to get to light, they keep being frustrated about their job. I'm trying to have a spiritual experience, but that thought keeps blocking me from, and then they get angry at the thought. Why are you getting in my way? I'm so messed up, I can't concentrate, I watch too much MTV, I need more Ritalin, whatever their excuses are. The Chinese government's to blame, Trump's to blame, who they want to blame for their emotional issues. But if you just give your attention to that, you put your das on the block itself, then you could usually release and then leverage the energy in that and then go into the deepest, even more powerful than normal. So I try and take the direct path, but if there's a block that doesn't allow me to, then I give my attention to that and speak authentically to that. And that's usually a path to something even higher and deeper.
Right. Sometimes Rebbe Nachman advises that the first thing person could even say is, well, Rabbi Rushas, I want to do his Bodhidut. Just building that desire. You know, like right now, our synagogues are closed. What are you going to pray? You're going to ask Hashem to help you do the Amidah perfectly? Right now, you should pray that why our synagogues are closed. I can't bear to pray alone. The prayer should be right now is the desire to want to be connected to it, or to want to go open up a synagogue. It's not even to get the thing itself. It's the desire to want it.
Right.
So there's times that there are blockages that are put in our lives. We're not on lesson 66. It's for you to build desire. How much do you really want this? And then you should just talk about that desire itself. Desiring that thing.
I want to want it. I want to want it. Because they don't say it, right?
Exactly.
It's the ratson, it's the desire, it's the yearning that opens up all the gates, that overcomes all the blocks. It's the Isarisa dilatata, it's the Mayan Nukvan. It's even if you can't get it, when you feel that frustration, you say, Hashem, let me get it. Please, I feel so far from you. That creates earthquakes above.
That's the sinor, exactly.
And when the breakthrough comes, at a supernatural level, personally, professionally, in any area, it's because of that yearning. When Hashem locks us out, because he's trying to awaken our yearning to get back in.
100%.
And it's the yearning to get back in which smashes all the blocks to pieces and takes us higher than we ever imagined. So there's a blessing in being locked out, is that you're going to awaken a new energy, a new will that you never had before. That's the whole Torah you're mentioning. That's what Rebbe Nachman says, the ikar is the ratzon, the ikar is the yearning, more than the action. The action, if I have a high spiritual experience,
exactly.
That's Hashem being nice to me. You say, yeah, I'll give you a high. But if you want to know what really, makes the person supernatural and takes you to the next level, it's the yearning is higher than even the experience itself.
So that's something that I've been able to tap into. A lot of desire, just unthirstable desire. And there hasn't been a goal that Hashem hasn't given me, because I knew it has to start with desire. Do I really want this? How bad do I want it? If I really want it, can I vision it? And I get into the details. I really get into the details. I get very concentrated on where would I want to do his will to do it, how would I want to say it. Same thing. We were missing the details today. We were not specific enough. Yeah, I want to do his will to do it. Okay, really? Where are you going to do it? What time are you going to do it? How bad do you want to do it? Would you pick a place? So the details. It's like a lot of visions out there, but not enough decisions. There's a lot of visions, but no decisions. I think exactly what we need to do is we need to take it from potential to actual. Take that vision and now make a decision. Okay, what are you going to do tomorrow?
So I think that's a great avoda. We can make that practical for everyone. Whenever you face a block in life, Ask yourself a question as fast as you can. What is Hashem making me yearn for here? What is Hashem make? The second you hit that brick wall, rather than complaining, rather than blaming, saying, what should I be yearning for? You know, when you see people sick in the world, then Hashem wants us to yearn for health. When you see the chaos, Hashem wants us to yearn for seder and order, right? Everything you see in the world where you think there's nothing you can do, you've got no move left, you always have one move, which is to yearn for a solution. The second you face the block, say, okay, what's Hashem wanting me to yearn for now? And that's the light you're drawing in. That's a creation that you're generating. Nothing can stand in the way of Ratzon when it's powerful enough. But Hashem is, getting your Ratzon, your yearning, your chukka going. What is he making me yearn for now? And then enter into the details, then map that out. How do I want it? How do I want to see that? How do I want to manifest that? What would it look like in the world if it could be that way? Fill in the details. I fill in the blanks. And now you're drawing in a whole new energy, a whole new possibility.
So you can't do that in a synagogue. Yeah, you can't do that in a synagogue. That has to be done by yourself in a specific time. It's something that's why his body is so important, because you need that time to work on your imagination. You need the time to work on your yearning. You need the time to cry out to God. This is exactly what we want to be isolated for. Cry out. How bad do you really want to be? How bad do you really want to go back to shul? Some people are not really wanting. The first question I ask people, and we know that 80% of the Jews did not leave Egypt for two reasons: lack of faith and lack of desire. Lack of desire. Many people don't want it.
They were happy in exile. Happy in enslavement. This is what I'm used to.
They don't want it. So you have to, that's why I ask people in my recovery groups, do you really want to get clean or not? Because whether or not you listen to me is whether or not you really want this or not. Our ratzon is always to something. Either it's to shtiyot, or it's either the addict wants infinity or he wants toxicity. He's always craving something. He's either craving this or he's craving that. The craving doesn't just go away. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we really craving? This is from Joseph Rosenfeld. He speaks a lot about this. What are you really craving? And Hashem creates these obstacles in our life just to enhance our desires and desires. Right. And this is exactly what the whole Jewish world should be right now, is desiring.
What do you really want? Right. This is called Bira Haratzon. What do you want, and why do you want what you want, and why do you want that? I want the car. Why do you want the car? You don't really want a car. You don't really want success. Why do you want approval? You want acceptance. You want connection. People don't really know why they want what they want. And when you lose what you want, then you have to look deeper. You have to feel deeper. You have to know what you're really going for. And is there a more holy, productive way to get that? And this Bira of Ratzon, this constant purification of will, is in some paths the core of all spiritual development, is knowing what you want and knowing why you want what you want. And the deeper you understand your motivation, the deeper you can manifest and reveal different realities. That's the core.
And that's what we're missing. The language is not there. We love these books on high performance. We love these, we love high performance. We love all these things. But it's really, why do you love it? Why do you love Michael Jordan? Or why do you love when...
Where's it going to get you? Where do you think it's going to get?
So why do you love when all of a sudden the guy down 18 points and they come back and win the game? Everybody loves that. That means that the reason why you love that so much, because it's in you. And you're supposed to be using that same energy for your spiritual goals.
The pure story, right?
And that's exactly what we're doing. We're not using. Yes, I go to the Dolphin games. I go whatever my shtiyot is, but at least I use the same ratzon for spirituality or in business. It's the same thing. That's not. Oh, I'm super hungry in business, but when it comes to spirituality, what time's what time's the 11 o'clock minyan starting? That's not good. When you're using your spirituality and you're making that second hands and you're hungry in business, where some of the guys will tell you, listen, I got ADD, I can't focus. But when he's in a 3-hour meeting with Walmart, his eyes are not taking off the buyers.
Right.
How come for Walmart you're sitting there concentrated for 3 hours, but when it comes to listening to a class or something, you have the Stevie Wonder ADD? I mean, that's something about us. At least, yes, you can have the shtiyot, but at least make sure that in your spirituality, you're also all in. Be all in both places. Don't just be all in for money or for this. And I think that's what I recognize. Okay, be hungry in every part of your life, not just in the areas that are good for your ego and stuff, and putting our spirituality in second hands.
Right. That's why Hashem's saying us back to the corner, because he's saying, what do you really want?
There you go.
Right. Let's be where that's on time. Were you happy with what you were getting? Were you happy what you're investing, and where was it taking you? Go back to your corner and think about it a little. Think about, exactly. When the bell goes and you jump out of your corner, what are you really choosing to invest in, to give cover to give focus to give attention to? If you're Stevie Wonder when you're learning, the Gemara, or when you're doing his Buddhist, but 1,010% focused in the business meeting. So no one has ADHD when something's speaking to their kishkas. When something's speaking to the core, you're 100% focused. So the question, if you program your kishkas to be ego or to be financial success, then you will be 100% focused on what gets you that, what you think gets you that. And you'll be Stevie Wonder. Nothing against Stevie Wonder.
Excuse me for you, Stevie Wonder. Excuse me for you.
Yeah, his music is amazing. So
I apologize.
We'll cover to the Stevie Wonder, but we're moving left and right, so to speak.
Let's use a Wimbledon match. The
Wimbledon match. Yeah, you're doing the proverbial tennis back and forward. Because why? Because it doesn't speak to your kids, because you think that's not essential to you. You think respecting other people is not essential to you. You think inner development is not essential to you. You think learning Chassidus is not essential to you. We don't think Torah and mitzvahs is not really essential. There's many people we can say it. Hashem should help us all who do Torah and mitzvahs, but they do it in an external way, and their lust or the desire, which really gets their attention, is on things in the world, even though they can look and they can sound very religious. So you can tell what a person is by what gets their real attention. And sometimes we get thrown back to our corner. Hashem saying, what's really on the inside and what are you really yearning for? And if you can shift who you think you are, then it'll massively shift what you give your attention to. When life goes after, where your attention goes, the energy flows. Exactly. So it's this idea of Biuravatsan, clarifying what do you really want. Rav Dessler says that if you want to know what a person is, this is a terrible thing to say. If you know what a person really, really wanted, yes, and there's lots of questions you can ask on this, but still it's worth it for the gulp you get when the penny will drop what I'm going to say. If you want to know who a person really, really is, what they really, really wanted, then look at who they are on their deathbed.
Yeah.
Right? If you say, I was I wanted spirituality and I wanted meaning, wanted depth, but I'm surrounded by cars and looks and lifestyle and all this kind of stuff, then at the end of the day, you're going to manifest what you really wanted, right? So when you see the last step of any individual, then this is what, everything that we achieve is based on what we put our focus on. And if this is what you put your focus on, hey, this is what you achieve. So that humility, we need to spend a little time in Hisbodedus, in Bidud, in isolation, kind of saying, was I getting what I really wanted from the world? And what was I investing in? What was getting my attention? This is what you mean by majoring in minor things. And therefore I need to start majoring in the major things. That's the shift. I wonder if everyone can think right now, what's one thing before they got, sent back to that corner, what's one thing that they can honestly say, they were giving too much energy and covered to? What's one thing, they were majoring in, which is a minor thing. And if you pulled back that attention and redirected that ratson, that will, when the bell rings, we can come out of the corner fighting again. What's one thing you like to increase your attention in, which is covered, which is Shechina, which is Chava, which is, and I'm staring in the box right now. I want to know if anyone can answer that question rather than proverbially. We're allowed to put them on the spot, that one. So everyone can think about that for a few seconds. Michael, do we have questions from the audience? Do we have time for that? Whoops, wait, your mic's not on? I did it on, you're on.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Everyone on Facebook, you can answer that question too. After the session, I'm going to come and see how everyone answers it. We can have a conversation there.
So there's a question here in the audience, which I want to bring it up.
Go ahead. Question time.
Okay, and this is, we're touching on the concept of Mashiach. Like I said, a lot of people talking about it here. This is a question coming in from, do we want to bring the person in or should I just read it to you?
I think you should read it. This is in the Q&A section. People are asking questions over there. Wow,
yes,
so many people.
Here's the question. This is coming in from This is coming in from Gabriel Ducci. The question is like this, Rabbi Katz.
Hey, Gabriel.
Your material has been life-changing for me. I just want to submit this thought. I'm a bit concerned about putting out there the idea that there's a price to pay if Mashiach comes before his time, or that Kabbalists don't want that. I'm not doubting that there's an idea like that. But I wonder if hearing something like this in mass might risk hurting the strength of someone's prayers that Mashiach should come now. If we look at the example of the Kohen Gadol's mother, how she blemished the prayers of the cities of refugee residents with gifts, who could only leave if the Kohen Gadol dies. Isn't it true that if one loses a mere fraction of one's desire for what one is praying for in this case, perhaps losing some of one's sense that I want Mashiach to come, it could be a blemish in one's daily tefillah regarding it? Thanks for your singularly awesome work. Shalom uvracha.
Wow, that's not a question. That's like a thesis.
Yeah,
wow, I appreciate it. I think we just give him a PhD.
Michael,
can we give PhDs? Gedale, do we have that?
Michael, pick the
idea,
question.
Rabbi, the idea here is the obvious. There's a lot of people right now that, even though we spoke about it in brief beforehand, the conversation is nonstop. And you're basically what he's saying, based upon like, oh, I don't know if I want it to come now or not. But we're supposed to we think about it, we pray about it 3 times a day.
Listen, Soivel Hafachim, a Jew has to live with contradictions. All our life is filled with contradictions. We have to say Mashiach now, we have to want it, we have to mean it. And we still go out and buy food for Shabbos, which is in 3 days from now. Why are you buying food for Shabbos? Mashiach now. So these things aren't contradictions, and we have to live with contradictions. And what that means is, it's dimion, it's wrong, and it's accurate to say 100% he's coming now, because it's not in your hands. You can't control it. And it's not helpful psychologically to tell people, don't take responsibility, don't work through your stuff, don't build, don't make parnasa because Mashiach is coming, right? So you have to engage in the world. You have to live in this world and the next world at the same time. You have to live in the now. You have to be present. You have to be connected. At the same time, you have to build and you have to shake the world and you have to wake people out of the slumber. But we're all infinitely connected. We're all connected. We're all disconnected. These are the dualities, the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, of connection, of right or wrong, or up or down, a space of time. It's a world of fragmentation, right? It's Bechinas Lo Keseda. And therefore, we have to hold cup. We have to hold attention to 2 polar opposites. Every time you pray with all your heart, Mashiach should come right now. That Hashem has the power to make Mashiach come right now. That Hashem has the power to make Mashiach come right now and onboard everybody into it. Hashem can. There's a famous story that I love about the great Hasidic master, that when he's playing mincha on Shabbos, and he prays a mincha, and it goes on for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, right? And the Hasidim are waiting for 30 minutes. The Rebbe's crying and crying, and finally the Rebbe steps out. They say he's crying so much. They said, why are you crying? The Rebbe said, there's so much suffering in the world. He's saying this on Shabbos. I asked Hashem Mashiach to come now, Mashiach to come now. And the Hasidim said, but Rebbe, it's Shabbos. Mashiach can't come on Shabbos. We have a tradition, Mashiach can come after Shabbos. So the Rebbe said, I love this line, let him come now and let it be a kasha. He said, let it come now, and we'll ask, but Mashiach, you can't come on Shabbos, but you came on Shabbos. How does that work? So the Rebbe said, it's not my problem. I want Mashiach to come now, and Hashem will answer how it all works out later. So that's how we pray, and that's the aspect of prayer. And when you pray, you have to pray your heart. And then when you step out of prayer, then we are co-creators in reality, and Hashem has not finished the job. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's get building. If the Baal Shem Tov says all of the world will have divine consciousness and supernatural ability, which before Mashiach comes. So I pray right now, Hashem, I don't know, it's not what the Baal Shem Tov says. I pray that you bring it anyway. And the Zohar says you have to believe it. When you say it, you have to believe it, and that causes it to happen, right? And then I step out of prayer, I say, great, let's go and teach consciousness to the world. Let's go and teach Rebbe Nachman to the world. Let's go teach Kedusha to the world. We can't say it's not healthy to people, or it's wrong to tell people the truth. It's wrong to tell people responsibility. We don't hold like that. We absolutely have the ability to bring Mashiach, and the potential is for him to come right now, absolutely. But if he's not here, then we understand what could be Hashem teaching us and what could Hashem be asking from us. And when we live with those 2 things together, that's living in a high way and it's living in a responsible way. And I believe when we live in a healthy, authentic way, that is itself what has the power to bring Mashiach in the right time.
That's beautiful.
That's what I have to say on that. Wait, microphone on.
Okay. This question is for Gedalia. Gedalia is from Jessica. What kept Gedalia going and continuing to do Hidbo to do when he didn't get any response in 6 months?
Oh, it's a big one.
Good great question. My unsatiable hunger, my stubbornness, spiritual stubbornness. Because Rebbe Nachman says it's greater than everything. That's what I kept on saying. If you said it's greater than everything, then it must be greater than everything. And it was a big test in heaven. And obviously we could see the effect today of his ability to do. But it's something that I had to just continue to be hungry. And I knew there was some kind of a test. I felt in my heart that I was getting tested to see if I would quit or not. And I just kept on. I kept on. That's where good stubbornness is. Just, again, not looking at the scoreboard, just going there and dealing with what I had to deal with. Not focusing on the prize, focusing on the process. And one day it was all like sky's the limit.
Okay, next question.
That's the answer. Yeah.
Thank you, Gedale. So here's the next question. This is a tough one. This is a really tough one. And I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this right now. It says, I'm so angry at Hashem for all that he put me through. It's so hard to talk to Hashem. How do I forgive Hashem? And how do I reignite my relationship with him? And obviously, you don't have to the words here. How many people right now around the world are suffering with their loved ones in the hospital? Some people obviously have had tragic, people have passed away. How do you deal with all this stuff?
Gedale?
For me, I basically say I don't know anything. And that's always been my, I go into bittul. I know there's a higher calling. There's a bigger reason why it's happening. Hashem did create the world out of chesed. And I always go back to, anytime I get stuck in life, I basically go into bittul, which is close my eyes, and I know there's a bigger picture going on. And I go into a concept of I don't know anything. And that's how I can eliminate that. But God forbid, angry at Hashem, never. I mean, he's done so much good for me my whole life that I could take one incident and say all of a sudden, what happened to all the 42 years of good things you did for me? So we can't just take 3 weeks that we're off. How about the 30 years, 40 years that he's given you, he's provided for you? So we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, just like we want to give us the benefit of the doubt. So people have, again, the one thing I've always told people have a short memory for gratitude and a long-term memory for trauma. And I think that's the problem today. The traumas, they'll remember for 20 years. They'll remember the insults, like somebody said something 5 years ago, but nobody remembers the compliments. Nobody remembers the gifts. Nobody remembers the breakthroughs. Nobody remembers the Yeshua. Nobody remembers any of that stuff. So we have a short-term memory for gratitude and a long-term memory for pain. And we're wired that way. Yes, we are wired that way. And that's where you have to get out of our emotions, get into intellect, and said Hashem created the world only to bestow his kindness. And we have to go into that mantra and say this is a blessing in disguise, but my intellect is not allowing me to see that. And that's what I practically do. I go into a state of, I don't know anything. Just like Rav Nachman says. Rav Nachman told Rav Nachman how he was at one time, he had many, many problems. And he says, what should I do? He basically said, make yourself into nothing. Close your eyes, close your ears, and make yourself into nothing. And that will give you a little consolation, but then you got to deal with reality. But like I said in the beginning of the class, I'm having a lot of highs and lows. Things are great. Shabbat was great. Next thing you know, okay, reality. Okay, close your eyes again. And it's that constant going back and forth that you're a human being. That's how people live. They have their up and down. There's no such thing as a flat line. And we have to recognize today, this is a marathon. There's going to be hills. There's going to be bumps. There's going to be a lot of things out there. And so we can only ask Hashem right now for humility and resilience. And I think if we have humility and resilience, we'll make it out of this thing 10 times like every other issue I've had in my life. But, acceptance is the number one thing. Without acceptance, we really can't go to plan B.
Beautiful. I'm going to add to this a little. It's a bit chutzpah to that. That was kind of perfect unto itself. There's two things I feel moved to say. One is, I want to say, it takes a lot of faith to be angry at God. It takes a lot of faith to be angry at God. There's people I know that don't believe in God enough to be angry at him. You know, they don't see that he's the source of things, and therefore they're angry at their father for abusing them, they're angry at the boss for firing them, they're angry at their wife for what they did to them. And they're not really aware. Maybe they believe in God as a theoretical model and something. But when you're really angry at God for things happening in the world, I think that's a very beautiful thing. I just want to say that means that you know he's the source of everything going down right now. So
anger is better than apathy.
Angry, right, that you're engaged. First of all, you care and you give a damn about the pain going on in the world, number one. And B, you correctly attribute that to the right source, right? So you're on the money. I've worked with people very deep in their lives, and until they can get angry at God, they can't actually work through their issues. And often they'll blame themselves rather than realizing you shouldn't put them in the situation. So I just say, Kol HaKavod, that's beautiful. Anyone that's angry at God, that means you're engaged and you really get who's moving the world right now, number one. And number two, an extension, as Gedale said beautifully, you know, Emunah means really at its core, without all the other fancy definitions, is to know that there's a bigger game going on than what you get and see right now. There's a bigger game at play. You know, if you study basic psychology, you know, there's a thing that we know called the fight and flight mode, that when someone gets triggered, you know, and the kind of all the capacity for reason, for logic, for processing goes down, and the body goes into a very primal state of survival. And one of the things that does psychologically is it highly limits perception, right? Like if you have someone, God forbid, pointing a gun at you and threatening you, you know, often they say, you know, what does this person look like? You know, what did the person look like holding a gun? And people aren't able to tell. I was in a crazy situation. I don't know if I'm allowed to publicly discuss this, but when I looked out my window one Shabbos and I saw an awful abuse happen of a young woman outside my window. And, you know, I ran around the block and I confronted this person. And I have a very unusual sense for faces, for memory of faces. But when they gave me a kind of lineup of photos for the police, this didn't happen long ago, it was very hard for me to recall because I was watching his body, whether he was going to go for me or go for the girl, and I was trying to cover each way. And what happens is when our emotions are triggered, we hyper-focus on minute things, and we lose it's called moichin dekatnus, right? And we lose our godless, we lose our greater perspective, we lose greater awareness of the greater good, the sense that something else is going on. We all know, every single one of us has in our lives examples where we thought we'd hit the wall, we thought it was the end, and then a breakthrough comes and we realize that everything happened was exactly as it needs to be. We've all been through that. We all have experiential references from that. But the definition of katnus is when I get into it next time, if, as Gedale said earlier, is I'm preparing for the marathon, right? I'm exercising, and then the game begins and I go. But if you haven't yet prepared, then the second the fight or flight, the pain comes up, the trauma comes up, our mind zooms into minute suffering, and we lose the capacity to remember there's a bigger game at play. When you study Kabbalah and you understand that the process of Gilgulim, of reincarnations, that nobody ever dies unless they need to, and exactly in the way that they need to when their souls rise up, then you realize that as tragic as death is in this world at this time, everybody is getting exactly what they need in the exact right way. Everybody's confronting in this world right now exact amount of suffering, personal pain, challenge, and having breakthroughs. You know, this is a very stupid what I'm going to say right now. I have a son who's 9 years old, who's the sweetest, most beautiful child, and he hates going to school because he feels so stupid. The Rebbe is really a useless Rebbe. He doesn't know how to explain things clearly. My son takes it personally, and his self-esteem is dropped. Now, I'm going to say something that sounds very stupid. I get the tragedy happening in the world right now, but the last 3 weeks have been a personal breakthrough for my child because I and the oldest son have been giving him attention, explaining clearly. He is now running through Mishnayos, running through Gemaras. For the first time, he has self-esteem. For the first time, he has connection. He's smart. So I know this sounds stupid to say, but there's so many unbelievable things happening in the world right now. There's a bigger game than we see. You know, I'm not saying anything as stupid as because of the Holocaust we got to Eretz Yisrael, because you never really say this is why a Holocaust happens, because that's not us for us to know, that's Hashem to know. But we are allowed to say what benefit do we see and what can we learn and what can we understand. And before every great revelation, there's always a great constriction. Before every great breakthrough, there's always a breakdown. That always happens. That's the process of Dormita, of Katniss to Gadlus. This is classic textbooks, Rebbe Nachman, all of Hasidus and all of Kabbalah. And we know that. We understand that. If you hear any of these good teachings, we get that. But once the fear comes up, the pain comes up, then our minds constrict and we become OCD about the darkness until we forget the light. So even though you're angry at God, what you have to do is remember, beautiful. So you're right. You realize that God is creating of everything, and he's guiding us now. 2 is there's tremendous goodness happening right now, tremendous breakthroughs happening by so many people in the world. And we're being taught a lesson, and we're being challenged, and we're being pushed. And I believe in the goodness of humanity that we're going to learn. I believe in the goodness of the communities around me, that they're growing and sucking the marrow out of this challenge. I believe that we will lose precious souls and people will suffer and they'll mourn and they'll learn and grow through that process. I believe ultimately good will come for those souls because that's what they needed, is some kind of cosmic tickling. I don't know what that is, but we've seen enough good come from darkness. That's the training of the marathon, that when the darkness comes, I can fight to remember. If I learn Hasidus, if I do as Buddhist, these things help me fight, that there's something bigger going on that I don't understand. And that Hashem, it's not Hashem has abandoned us, but Hashem believes us in us so much that sometimes he's willing to take a step back to allow us to take an incredible leap forward. And that's the core of what gets me through this time. I hope that makes sense.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Very nice, Rebbe.
So I have...
Is anybody still there? Say hi if anybody's still there. If you're watching, it's interesting. Give us a 1-sentence feedback. We call this an elevation, emotional check-in. Michael, Gedale, and I were chatting away. Give us a 1-sentence feedback. What's this experience been like for you? Or if you're here in Zoom, 500 people. If you're online, there's hundreds there. Give us a 1-sentence feedback. How's it going for you? What are you enjoying so far? Yes, from Michael.
I'm going to tell you that, honestly, there's so much to talk about. And I'm looking here, a lot of the questions. There's a lot of pain out there. That's for sure. And there's a lot of people that are just inspired at the same time globally from what's going on. And I think the truth of the matter is that I want everybody who's watching today really make an effort to reach out to both Gedale Fenster and Rav Doniel Katz into their programs. It's going to be a question. I'm going to flip it as a question to both of you guys. And I think it's a nice way to bring this home because I see a couple of questions that are very similar in this idea. The question's like this, you know, we all do Kirov and we all do different things in regards to inspiring people, helping them to grow in Yiddishkeit, getting close to Hashem, right? Now, also on this chat are definitely teachers and lecturers that do the same thing, that learn from you guys as well and try to inspire other people. There's different levels of people, right? You have the people who are not connected at all. You have the people that are somewhat connected and they want to grow. And then you have, I look at the ones that are like, they're already, so to speak, from, but they want to grow higher, as you're saying, serious about avoda. Rabbi, you mentioned that statement. They're serious about their avoda. So this is kind of like a 3-pronged question, and I want you guys to really like think about it a little bit. How do you, first, between your own programs, what you guys do, what you guys talk about, what are you offering? What can you offer to the masses in regards to helping those 3 levels of individuals that right now are at the stop mode? They know that they need to grow. What can you offer them and helping them? And I myself, when I'm in the world of Kirov and I help, I try to speak to as many people as I can. You know, for me, I always want to say, I want to shout from the top of the roof, Teshuvah time, guys, Teshuvah time. And I want to wake up everybody. And I want to, and I can scream as much as I can. But I want to know from your angles, what is it that you can do on those 3 levels for those 3 individuals, and then how that ties into your programs and what you guys offer?
Right. I mean, I've seen people. I mean, I've seen the combination. I've seen a combination of people that were not listening to the classes, and all of a sudden there's tons of new members just because, you know what? Let me try it. I have nowhere. Before they were too busy to do it. So, I mean, what we could teach people basically right now, I would say, is teach them how to think greater than they feel. I don't care how smart you are, whether you're Bill Gates, whether you have all the money in the world. Right now, it's a time to think greater than you feel. everybody, there's times that we feel awful. We're thinking about this, we're thinking about that. But just no matter who we are, no matter how smart you are, emunah comes before intellect. So I would say, as a very general line, thinking greater than you feel, the same way as a patient that anticipates a new drug that altered emotion before even takes the pills. Just thinking that things are going to work out and just believing in something much bigger. Thinking greater than you feel, I would say, is my thing. And that's in the toughest times that I've gone through in my life. What's helped me is already anticipating how would I feel when the situation's already finished. And I start already walking around like it's already done. And once I get into that state, somehow or another, the problem solves itself or the problem turns into an opportunity. So right now, when you're hearing all this news, the news is making you feel terrible. There's no question. So we have to limit the news and start anticipating, start using your mind to think greater than you feel. And the only way to do that, to think greater than you feel, is only through faith. Through faith, going to faith. Not having faith, like Rebbe Doniel says, going to faith, thinking greater than you feel. That's what it's helped me. Times where I feel like, oh my God, what's going to be with this? What's going to be with that? I close my eyes and I think about the Suda that I'm going to throw when this isn't over. So mine is a very simplicity. Where would I be when all this is over? How would I walk into synagogue? What kind of Suda would I throw? That's what it's the same technique I do. It's called anchoring that experience of the future into now. And nobody can take away what I feel like. Nobody can take away what I think about. And that's what I do. I'm already so much into the solution that the present moment doesn't bother me that much. That's practically what I do. So I would say, whether you're religious, not religious, yeshiva, nothing, you still have to think greater than you feel in this particular time, because nobody knows anything right now. Nobody has a control of what's going to happen. Nobody knows if it's going to be over tomorrow, a month. Nobody has a clue, from Rabbanim to the youngest guy. So the only thing you could do is you can think greater
Simple,
That's my response.
Amazing.
Simple, and
yeah.
And it's simple. It's simple.
You make the complex things seem so simple. It's a special gift. In my own words, I would just say, it comes down to something called the Vekas. And the Vekas is, you can have everything and you can have nothing, and then you can have divine nothingness and experience everything. And the Vekas is the reason we are not in Geula, is the reason we're not in Jerusalem, is the reason there's still war and disease and suffering and people who are married but have no connection, is the reason children are off the derech, that the Jewish people don't know the power of their own tradition, the reason that we sometimes speak down to Goyim because we don't see their own greatness and their own, right? It's us versus them mentality, is because the Dveikus is a mitzvah that we have in our capacity, in our consciousness, a divine state of being, a divine awareness, which is full of infinite connection and infinite light and infinite love and infinite value within ourselves. And from that state and awareness, we can see the infinite light and love and divine revelation within all things and all people. And I believe that this is the end game. This is Hashem's end game, is to teach the world, hopefully through the Jewish people, how to access Dveikus, how to experience divinity within them, and therefore how to see and connect to divinity in everyone and everything in the world. And that's the end game of Torah. That's where Hashem's taking us to. And I think one of the painful realizations in this generation is you can hold on to all of Torah and all of mitzvahs and keep them in a very profound halachic way and still be lacking and still be in exile. Yeah. Because you don't know. You can have all the details and forget about the core, forget about the central point, which is divine connection. And I can't, with a straight face, saying I'm going to offer that. But for me, when I was living a secular life, when I was a filmmaker, what kept me awake at night was this feeling of how disconnected we are from ourselves and how disconnected we are from the environment, how disconnected we are, from each other. And then I discovered this unbelievable path of unity and vision and supernatural ability and teachings in Judaism, Chassidus and Kabbalah. And I spent years learning in Shiva, the assumption that this was going to make me closer to myself and closer to Hashem. And I can't tell you that's what I got. What I got was that you can now have all the religious stuff and also not be disconnected. You can also be disconnected. And I felt the religious stuff was all the tools and all the wisdom about connection, but there was something missing. And I remember where I was and who I was when I found the answer, that there's one mitzvah we forgot to keep. And what I found for myself and as others, when you can teach a person to connect to their inner wisdom, to their innate divinity, to the true power, the true strength, that's what Rebbe Nachman calls emunah, right? When you teach a person to access that, to not intellectually believe in God, but directly experiencing him, and then allow that to shift, reorder your inner world, and allow that to change your relationship. When you hate your wife and you hate your husband or angry at them, it's because you hate yourself and you're angry at yourself. When you sense your own divinity authentically, then you can't help but fall in love with a divinity for another, to see in all the differences, all the dualities, to find divinity there. And then Torah and mitzvahs becomes electric, and not just profound wisdom, but profound experiential teachings. So I see myself as part of a movement of lots of other good souls, be they religious. In the religious world, people that have been keeping Torah mitzvahs, but they feel that something's lacking, their prayer's not there, their emunah is not there, to show them that how they can turn that on and transform their Torah as well. And the second field is to take many unaffiliated Jews that are seeking in the wisdoms of the external world, which have wonderful things in them and have not so wonderful things in them, but to show them that everything they're seeking is even more profound and more easily accessible in their own tradition. And that often 99% of the time, the reason they left or disconnected with their own tradition, like myself, is because they didn't know the true magic and power and transformative light within that, and to give them access to that. And finally, is I believe with all my heart, and I get that some people will get angry with me. This is my hat trick on the subject tonight. I believe with all my heart, because I'm just quoting the Torah, that we're supposed to be a light to the nations, that the wisdom that we have, that the light that we have supernaturally with energy, the transformative wisdom of our wisdom tradition was really there for everybody in the world. And I think we've fallen away from that mission. And I believe it's time to step up to the plate, and we have to own our own stuff and get beyond ourselves and start contributing to others in the world. Frankly, on a personal level, it really breaks my heart. Part of why I'm doing the webinar I did the other day, and with this holy one with the two of you, is I'm really, really pained. Has there not been much Jewish leadership stepping up and talking about what we're going through right now? But I really believe we're supposed to be sharing a message with the world and sharing strength and support and emunah with the world, and we're almost silent in that area. And it really breaks my heart. And we're not even doing it to our own people on a significant level. And I believe that's part of the mission. I believe we're in a fight and flight mode after 2,000 years of running from pogroms and expulsions and holocausts. But now is the time to wake us to connect to our own light and then share that light in a way that we've never done before. So I can't tell you I'm doing that or I'm contributing that, but I'd like to think that I'm on the team of good souls like all of you. Where these are the things that we know worked most profoundly for us when we were seeking. And with educators' sensibilities, anyone who's like a little empathic, we know that everyone around us, these are the things that they're most missing. And we know if we could just connect those dots together, then the awakening could be, really atomic. And that's, I wouldn't say I'm contributing that, but that's the kind of mission and sensitivities I think we're all trying to push forward.
Beautiful.
Amazing, Rabbi. So it's 3 o'clock on our time. It's been 2 hours.
Clear.
I think we are past the time. Unless there's other questions you want me to tell from the audience, it's up to you guys.
I think we did great. I just want to give a couple of thank yous. I want to thank Michael Ben Melech, who is such a visionary, passionate, warm, open guy who generates tremendous energy for the Jewish people. It's the Lighthouse Project and all these different things. And I love working with you, and I love any chance we get to do something good together. And I'm always excited about future opportunities there. Hashem should bless you and your family, keep you safe, healthy at this time. And I'd like to thank Gedale Fenster, who I can honestly say I've never heard really any of his shiurim, but I have such a love and respect for this yid. For some reasons I can tell you, and for some reasons it's wrong for me to tell you. But all the people that he helps, without saying more than is inappropriate, with all the people that he helps, he still has tremendous humility right? He's a teacher that, when I come to a city, he takes me out for lunch and we hang out. That there's a tremendous humility that he gives to so many. And he's the king of the world. I mean, look what him and look what he's doing. But he listens and he really walks the walk and talks the talk. And we've shared some sweet times together. And he taught me, we can't talk about it publicly, but he taught me recently a very important lesson for myself, which is he is deeply connected in an authentic way to Hasidus, Rebbe Nachman, and is a from holy yid. At the same time, he's deeply independent soul, and he does things in a way that's real for him and authentic to him. And I think that's part of the core of what he contributes, is that he's uncompromisingly Torah, but he's uncompromising himself. And they're unique things, and he does that with humility. So I want to say it's been a pleasure talking and sharing.
It's always a pleasure. I've learned, Rabbi, you should know how much I've learned from you. I've learned tons and tons of you, and I share it to everybody. B'ezrat Hashem. Michael, great job. And I bless everybody that we should all get out of this pretty soon, and we should be transformed from darkness to light, and only good things should follow the whole world, and the whole world should be healed. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please, everybody, like or love the Facebook talk and press the share button, so that just ups it all and we can share with the world. Thank you, everybody. You should only know light and blessings and have health and peace and suck the marrow of the opportunity to turn the world from darkness to light here and now. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael.
Have a wonderful day, guys.
Over and out.